Imagine being a massive soccer fan. It's the World Cup, and as a Swiss national, you've decided to dust off your passport and go support your team. You book a flight to the US, fill out your ESATA online, and head over. Easy. But what if you're from Ivory Coast? Just like the Swiss guy, you've got a passport, so you should be allowed to cheer your team on. But you can't, because behind every passport are 3 barriers. So what are they, and why is it that not every passport allows you to pass through the same ports? There are 3 barriers a passport can build, and the first one comes right out of its history. Passports aren't a new idea. In fact, the idea of passport is old, really old. In the Bible, we find the king of Persia giving Nehemiah letters of safe passage to travel to the kingdom of Judah. In Roman times, people traveling on official business were issued a tractorium, a letter in the name of the emperor. That's one of the reasons St. Paul was once called Saul. Paul was the Roman name he used on his travel documents. The common assumption is that passports were invented to help people move safely, but it's the other way around. They were made to prevent trouble. William the Conqueror allowed no one to enter or leave England without his permission. Henry I refused to grant a passport to the Pope's legend, and Elizabeth I refused one to Mary, Queen of Scots. The document also decided who counted as a full traveller. In the early 20th century, married American women were a footnote in the husband's passports. They couldn't cross the border alone, while married men were free to roam. Then the modern passport arrived in 1920. In the aftermath of the First World War, the idea of the worldwide passport standard emerged, championed by the League of Nations. A year later, the United States passed the Emergency Quota Act of 1921. The stated emergency was too many newcomers from countries seen as a threat to American hegemony. The way to identify an immigrant came from the newly minted passport. The 1921 law took the numbers of people from each nationality found in the 1910 census and then began to slam the door on how many people were allowed in. At first, it was just 30% of each group. People who were expecting family to join them in the US were suddenly fighting to get the loved ones access, especially if they had the wrong passport. And what made a passport wrong got even stricter with the Immigration Act of 1924. Known as the Johnson-Reed Act, it jumped back from the 1910 census to one from the 1890, meaning if your passport didn't come from a European country like Great Britain, Ireland, and Germany, or worse, your nation didn't even have passport, you were out of luck. This had a huge impact on who could enter the US and helped build the idea that an American identity is Eurocentric and white, a racial hierarchy that echoes to the present day. From the start, the passport was a way to sort people, to separate them out based on nothing more than where they were born. This is the first barrier: politics. But politics that pretends it's about safety. The idea behind the passport is that it keeps people safe. If you have one, that means someone's checked you out, made sure it's safe for you to travel, and you're, hopefully, not afraid. That means they have to be secure, safe, and nearly impossible to forge. And they are. Take a look at this Swiss passport. It's a gorgeous object. It's one of the most beautiful documents ever made. And there's a reason for that. For this passport, Retina blended the stunning Swiss countryside with 2D maps to recreate it in a 3D modeled landscape. What makes this work particularly astonishing is that some of the artwork doubles as protection. Some of the most stunning detail is in holographic images that change color when viewed from different angles and are extremely difficult to copy. You see this technique used in other passports. Yours probably has something similar. Across the pages, they follow an imagined journey along Switzerland's waterways, from the Alpine peaks down to the valleys, through the 26 cantons and to the world beyond. The cover carries a snow-capped mountain range, an iconic symbol of Swiss Alps. The first page shows Piazza Rotondo, a summit in the St. Gotthard Massif, and the source of some of Switzerland's largest rivers at the crossroads of the country's linguistic regions. But this is only what the naked eye sees. Flash a UV light on the page, and a new world reveals itself. Shapes, lines, patterns. A colorful mosaic appears on the page, showing Switzerland's topography and architecture in one. That's just the creative side. The pragmatic reason is that these patterns are incredibly difficult to replicate or alter, and the authority will have an easy time spotting fakes. These fine lines, physically and symbolically, safeguard the holder's data. The passport is resistant to water, tearing, and fading. The holder's photograph is laser engraved onto a polycarbonate data page, which makes it nearly impossible to alter. It's a document that's both beautiful and secure. Behind all that beauty is a cold, hard desire. Sure, this passport will help you get in, more often than not, though all these creative tricks are about keeping you out. Let's compare the Swiss passport to the one our Ivory Coast soccer fans might have. It's not as pretty, but it still has most of the security devices you'll find in a Swiss document. Holograms showing the name of the country, stunning watermarks depicting the elephant head, the country's national emblem. There's even a chip containing the owner's biometric data. The person and the nation are both physically embedded in the passport. But while the Swiss passport gets you into 192 destinations all around the world, that's around 12 more countries than the US passport, by the way. The Ivory Coast only gets you across 74 borders. It could be worse. Afghanistanis can only travel to 24 other nations. That's because no matter how safe your passport is, or says you are, it's not the document that decides where you go. It's other nations, or more accurately, who's in charge there. Over the years, the United States and China have developed immigration policies that are almost polar opposites. Henley and partners help wealthy people gain citizenship in different parts of the world, usually for some economic advantage, better taxes, softer regulations, and so on. To do that, they need to know how open each country is, and they publish the results. Americans can travel visa-free to 179 destinations, but to come into the US without a visa, you have to be lucky enough to be from one of 42 countries, ranging from Japan to Qatar to the United Kingdom. Even then, you need to apply for a travel authorization online through the ESATA, and even that's not guaranteed. That puts the US 78th on the Henley Openness Index, lower than places you might think are harder on visitors, like Russia, who are 49th, and who let people in from 113 countries. China is going the other way. It took them just 2 years to add 40 extra countries to its list. So now, 77 nationalities are allowed to visit visa-free, and it ranks 62nd. It looks like the US is becoming more nationalist, while China is becoming more open. And that's where the political barrier comes from. It's down to the political whims of whoever is ruling a nation at any given time. If they wanted, China could block everyone, and the US could pass a law letting anyone in. But that won't happen unless there's some major change, usually due to either who's in charge or the economy. After all, boosting tourism and getting more investors to visit is exactly why China is becoming more open. So maybe that's the real barrier to entry. Money. Let's say you're from Nigeria and you have a family living in Germany and Switzerland. You need a visa to enter a Schengen area of EU. You'll be spending most of your time in Germany, so you apply for a Schengen visa through this country. First, you need your passport, but you have to make sure it doesn't run out until 3 months after the day you plan to come home. You need a new one. A Nigerian passport costs around 100,000 naira, which is around $106. Then you have to get an application, so you go online through Videx, fill in everything it asks, and print it out all and get an barcode. Then you register on the German Consular Services portal. You need to be patient though, as that website is notoriously glitchy. You're likely to get a screen that looks like this a few times at first. Once you finally go through, rebooting your system, changing browsers, jumping through hoops, they'll put you on a waitlist for an appointment. As it's a short trip, you only have a few weeks to wait to find out the date. If you're going longer, that might be months. And be sure to get where in Nigeria you are. If you put Lekki instead of Abuja, and you live in northern states, they'll reject your visa. Then, you need to get your other documents together. So, even before you know if you can travel, you've got to book your flights and pay for your insurance. So that's anything from $500 to $400 for the flights and about $25 for the insurance. You also need a letter from your family or sponsor. If you have one, it's called a formal obligation letter and has to be stamped in Germany at any immigration office and mailed to you. If it doesn't show up, you need to ask your relatives to do the whole thing again. Finally, weeks later, you get to your appointment. You submit all your documents, have your biometric information captured and pay €95, which to you is 145,000 naira. So far, you spent almost 1.3 million naira, or roughly $1,000. Your monthly wage is about $220, and you've got a good middle management job. You have another nervous wait. After 15 days, you find out you're one of the 45.9% who get rejected. Apparently, that barcode was ever so slightly smudged, maybe not even by you. Nearly a month's wages are up in smoke. Maybe you can get the cost of the flights back. Or maybe you should have tried Switzerland. To go there, the process is pretty similar, but a bit quicker. You can book your interview slot at the VFS stage, and you don't need a letter from your family. Just proof you can afford the trip, and you have a 79% chance of getting accepted. The reason for all this randomness and expense is pretty simple. The countries that already get visa-free access to Schengen are the ones it thinks of as safe. The standing in line, the filling in of forms, the fees, they exist to screen you out. The more of that you have to do, the less they want you there. But compared to the US, the EU is tame. Remember our Ivory Coast soccer fans? They aren't alone. They're just one of the 39 countries whose citizens can't go to watch the World Cup due to travel bans. They don't even get a chance to lose time and money on visa. The president of Ivory Coast Fan Association would normally send supporters to the World Cup, hoping to sort out the visas when needed and making sure no troublemakers are on the trip. But this time, he didn't even bother trying. To him, the ban is a form of segregation that doesn't dare speak its name, and points out that no European country has faced this kind of restriction. Why Africa? Maybe the reason goes right back to 1924. And that's the genius and the cruelty of the object. It's the most beautiful, most secure, most carefully engineered booklet in the world. And the thing it protects most perfectly is the line between the people it lets in and the people it keeps out. And that's the third and final barrier. Sometimes it's not where you're from, but who you are. The passport in the fans' pockets is the same as the one in the players' and referees' pockets, but the players' version opened the border. Theirs didn't. Same sport, same flag, same nation, different passport.